Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. Introduction to Gemini API Code Interpreter Execution. The Gemini API is a powerful tool for developers looking to integrate advanced AI capabilities into their applications. One of the key features of the Gemini API is its ability to execute code, allowing users to run code snippets in various programming languages. This tutorial will guide you through the process of using the Gemini API to execute code with a practical example. Prerequisites. 1. Access to the Gemini API. Ensure that you have access to the Gemini API. You may need an API key or other credentials. 2. Basic knowledge of HTTP requests. Familiarity with making HTTP requests using tools like curl, postman, or programming libraries like requests in Python. 3. Programming environment. A development environment set up to test the API calls, example Postman, Python, etc. Step 1. Set up your environment. Before we start coding, ensure you have an environment to send HTTP requests. For this example, we will use Python with the requests library, which you can install using pip. Step 2. Understanding the API endpoint. The Gemini API typically provides an endpoint for executing code. The endpoint might look something like this. The request body usually contains the following fields. Code, the code snippet you want to run. Language, the programming language of the code snippet, example Python, JavaScript, etc. Timeout, optional, maximum time, in seconds, to allow the code to run. Step 3, example code execution. Let's create a Python script that sends a request to the Gemini API to execute a simple Python code snippet. Example code. Step 4, running the code. 1. Replace your _API_ key with your actual Gemini API key. 2. Run the script in your Python environment. Step 5, understanding the response. The API will return a JSON response containing the execution result. If the code executed successfully, you will see the output. If there was an error, example syntax error, runtime error, you will receive an error message. Example output. Conclusion. In this tutorial, we introduced the Gemini API's code execution capabilities and provided a practical example of how to execute Python code using the API. You can extend this concept to execute code in other programming languages supported by the Gemini API. Always refer to the official API documentation for the most accurate and detailed information regarding endpoints, parameters, and response formats. Further reading. Gemini API documentation, https://api.gemini.com/docs. Python requests library documentation, https://docs.python-requests.org/n/master. This tutorial should help you get started with executing code using the Gemini API.